Australians deserve equality and recognition in Australia.
Did you know that 97% of Indigenous Australians often experience racism in our society? It's just wrong. Indigenous Australians have inhabited our country for tens of thousands of years, yet they haven't been given equality or recognition in society. My points are that they are the traditional owners of our land, so they deserve it. We get equality, yet they don't. And finally, a treaty is the solution to Indigenous racism within Australia. January 26, 1788. The day Europeans threw Indigenous Australians' lives into turmoil. 230 years ago, Europeans invaded Australia. Before European settlement, Indigenous Australians had lived in our country for 60,000 years. Just imagine how the Indigenous would have felt, having never seen a white person in their lives, and suddenly an influx of over 1,000 white people came to their home, their land. Yes, they gained citizenship and the right to vote in 1967, but that was 66 years after Australia became a nation. That was 66 years where Indigenous people were treated even more badly than they are today. They dealt with dispossession, ruthless murders, and being the stolen generation. It's unjust and unfair to the Indigenous people. Everyone sitting in this room today has rights. We're all treated equally, the same as everyone else. That is a completely different story for Australia's Indigenous population. They get no equality whatsoever. They're the same as us. The only difference is that their ancestors have lived here longer than ours. So, why don't they have the equality that we have? It's because they have a different coloured skin, a different culture, and a different religion. I really don't see why these factors are overruling the truth. Because, from personal experience, I know Indigenous Australians are perfectly lovely people. In Broome 3 years ago, my family and I met an Indigenous man. We had a conversation with him, just like he was a friend. Mandaway Yunupingu, an Indigenous musician and civil rights activist, once said, "Racism is a disease in society. We're all equal. I don't care what their colour is or their religion. Just as long as they're human beings, they're my buddies." A legal agreement between the government of a particular country and their Indigenous people is known as a treaty. Australia just happens to be the only country in the entire Commonwealth without one. If the government stepped up and tried to make it work between our two cultures, it would be the progression to a perfect relationship. Indigenous people would get a better education, they'd have more rights, and they'd be subject to less violence. In November last year, Malcolm Turnbull, our Prime Minister, stated that he supports same-sex marriage, yet he doesn't believe that Indigenous Australians should be given equality or recognition in society. For Australia, getting a treaty signed could take years, but recently the Victorian government announced that an $18 million push has been put in place for a treaty. This will promote self-determination and improve the lives of so many Indigenous Victorians. After hearing me speak today, I really do believe that Indigenous Australians deserve equality and recognition in society because they are the traditional owners of our country. We get equality, yet they don't. And a treaty is the solution. After hearing me speak today, I want you to take two things away with you. Indigenous Australians have to be given equality now. And finally, white Australia has a black history.